We're coming up, B'ezrat Hashem, to Chag Shavuot, coming in Thursday night. So let's talk a little bit about the holidays so we know how to do it properly. The whole point of Shavuot, what happened over there? We received the Torah on Har Sinai. And, the Chazal talk about this, a lot, at length, about what happened over there. Because the truth is, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they say, He offered the Torah to every nation, to every Ummah. And the only ones who accepted it was Am Yisrael. All the other nations, they said, no, I'm sorry. Why I'm sorry? Why didn't they want? So there's a whole discussion about this, and the Zohar Kadosh talks about it. What happened over there really, But by the way, we don't see, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually went to the nations. Like made some kind of a meeting with them, and said, you want to accept the Torah, like Har Sinai, He made like Har Sinai for them? We don't see this in history. So when was it, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu offered them the Torah? We don't see that there was some kind of event like this, Do you know about this, Jonathan? Where was this, Where did this happen? Was it in the World Trade Center? Where was it? where did they offer it? Where did Hashem offer the Torah to the Goyim? Where was this? So says Zohar Kadosh, it wasn't in any place. It's not the pshat. It's not the meaning. You know what the meaning is, right? He didn't actually go to the people of those nations, to offer them the Torah. No. He went to the Sar, right, the heavenly prince of that nation. Every nation has a heavenly prince in Shamayim. Malach, that runs that country. He went to them and he offered them the Torah. He said, do your people want to accept the Torah? The people that you represent on earth, do they want the Torah? You accept it? So they were the ones who were making the deal for the people. The heavenly prince, the Malach, was making this deal. It wasn't the people themselves. Hashem never spoke to the people about this. But it's the same thing. He doesn't have to speak to the people. The prince of the nation, the Malach, is like the nation itself. It's the same thing. It's one unit. Just like we're one unit with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we, Am Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're one. Same thing also with the Malach. That Malach is one with the nation. That's why they say something interesting about this, which is that if you see it, right, a goy, there we have many of them now, Baruch Hashem, we have anti-Semites, who hate Jewish people, they talk against Jewish people, they talk against Israel, they talk against Bibi, they say, oh, Bibi, 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 Habibi, they say all kinds of things they say, right? What makes them do this? And how can we stop them? What I mean? So, the stupid people, what they think is, how we stop them? Let's make a plan, let's negotiate with them, go and, make meetings, and, intimidate them and maybe bribe them, God knows, all kinds of games like this. All kinds of things they say, we'll make a plan, and we'll take care of it. That's what the low-level people do. But is this really the proper way to do it? The truth is it's not. You know why? Because the Mekubalim, they say, that the Goy only does whatever the heavenly Sar, the prince tells him to do. Whatever he tells him to do, the heavenly prince, that's what he does. So it's not really under his own control, the Goy, It's not like he has free will so much with this. The heavenly prince, so what is that? If you see, right, a Goy who's an anti-Semite, it's because his heavenly prince is anti-Semite. So what's the way to stop them? By going directly against them? No. It doesn't really help so much. So what you got to do is, to do teshuvah. When you do teshuvah, Hashem subjugates that heavenly prince, in Shamayim, to be with us, to be for us. If you don't do teshuvah, they're always going to be against you, the goyim. No matter what you do. You love them, you hate them, you're nice to them, you negotiate, you don't negotiate. Whatever you do, they're always going to hate you anyway, if the Sar hates you. So the Sar and the people, they're connected. So that's why Hashem went to the Sar, of each nation. So he went to Esav, right? It says in the Zohar HaKadosh. He went to Esav's Sar. The Machlach, right? Who was the Sar of Esav? What's his name? Satan. Right? Satan is the son of the Sar of Esav. That's what it says in the Zohar HaKadosh. Satan is their Sar. So he went to Satan, He told them, he says, listen, your people, Esav, they wanna accept the Torah. The Romans, right, the Edomites, they want to accept. So the Tsar, of Esav, he told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he says, what's written over there in the Torah? Can you explain to me? So he said, it says, do not kill, So Hashem said, so the Tsar said to Hashem, it's not for me, Why? Because it says about us, the bracha, right? Al charbecha tichiyeh, right? That's how Yitzchak Avinu blessed Esav. We're going to live by the sword, We live by the sword, We're going over there, to Iran, right? To take care of business over there. We live by the sword, So what do you mean? Well, how can we accept this, not to kill? That's our business. We kill, we're killers. That's why they say, that the which planet, right? Which kochav is the one that represents Esav? He's right. Which one is Madim? How is that in English? Mars. Right? Mars is the planet, that's the Mazal of Esav. This planet. And that's why the color is what? Red. What's the color? Red. Why? Blood, murder, killing, right? That's what I mean. It represents killing, retzach. That's why it's red, Maybe that's the reason why they all want to go there, They're always talking about this, right? Let's go to Mars. Let's go to Mars. They're always talking about this all the time, Why? Because that's their mazal. They like it over there, maybe. I don't know. They want to go visit there. That's the thing, So that's the thing, So Mars, as we said, right? The Satan. So Hassan told him, he says, well, we're killers, how can we accept the Torah like this? So you know what it says in Zohar? Not only Satan said, that we cannot accept this, we're killers, that's our nature. He told to HaKadosh Baruch Hu like this, the Satan. He said, you know what? He says, I have a suggestion for you. We cannot accept this, for us it's no good, this Torah. By the way, why was he saying this? We don't want to accept it. Because he was saying, he was thinking like this, He was thinking, if we accept the Torah and then we start killing people, we're going to be chayav, always, for killing. So it's no good, Why should we bring upon ourselves punishment? 10 Commandments, right? Do not kill. Lo tirtzach. So he says, I don't want this, I want now to break the 10 Commandments every day when I go kill somebody. So he didn't want. He says, no good for me, I'm going to get punished for this. So therefore he said, what he said? Listen to it. He says, I have a suggestion for you. You know who you should give the Torah to? To Am Yisrael. He says, they're the ones, it's going to be good for them, They're perfect for the Torah. That's what he said. That's what he said, the Tsar of Esav, the Satan. Why did he tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu like this, to give the Torah to Am Yisrael? He loves them so much? What's the reason why? So you know what the reason is, right? The reason is because he was thinking, they're going to get punished, if they accept the Torah and they break it, they're going to be punished, it's good, Baruch Hashem, we get them, we kill them like this. That was the whole idea behind that, you understand? So he suggested to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, said, listen, give it to them, they're the ones who are going to, they're perfect for this. That was his whole kavanah. So he said, give it to them. Okay, fine, So, okay, now, right, Esav doesn't want the Torah, right? Satan doesn't want. Now he goes to the Tsar of Ishmael, right? Ishmael. So who was the Tsar of Ishmael? What's his name? Not Satan, different guy. His name is Rahab, right? That's why it calls them Mitzrim, in the Bible, it calls them Rehavim. Rahab, because their Tsar is Rahab. Reish, Hey, Vet.
Actually, in Tehillim it also says
Rehavim, okay. So, there you go, right? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So, his name is Rahab. So he went to Rahab, and he told him, he says, listen, you are your people, Ishmael. You want to accept the Torah? You want? So they said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, so he told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he says, what's written in there, So he told him two things, there's two different midrashim about this, by the way. One says he told him, do not steal, right? So, he told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right, according to this, but we all steal, we're thieves, we're all ganavim, so what do you tell me? That's our business, right? Yadol b'kol, yadol b'kol. That's our business, we cannot accept that. It's not our nature, we steal, I tell people a funny story, always when I mention this. One time, I was in Eretz Israel, I was in the kollel there, Maran's kollel, So there was a lunchroom over there, in the kitchen, where you go there, eat lunch. So what happened was, I had a watch. In those days, we used to wear a watch. Now we have the time on our phone. We don't need a watch anymore. We used to wear a watch in those days. So what happened was, right, that I put the watch on the table. I took it off and put it on the table. You know why? Because one was eating halabi and one was eating basari. You had to put something in the middle. There's a rule like this, right?
Yeah, something different.
Right. So, hefsek, right? So I put the watch over there, I turn around, and it's gone. Boof, I turn back, gone. Right? The watch and it was a cheap watch, Casio. What does it cost? $10. $10 watch.
The calculator?
Yeah, no calculator. Even cheaper than that, right? Even cheaper. Regular one, no calculator. I'm not that sophisticated. So what do you call it? So it's gone, So I look around, to see who took it, what happened? So there's a Ishmaeli over there, Arabi. He's working there, cleaning the kitchen. You know what I mean? I said, oh, this guy, he took my watch. I turned around and he took my watch. You know what I mean? So right away, I could see, he took it. So I told him, I said, you took it? I pointed to him. I said, you took it? You no good. So I scared him, I says, if you don't give it back to me, he says, I'm going to go tell in the office about you. You're going to get fired. So what did he do? He put it back, He put it back. He got scared, He got scared him. This is how they are, the Ishmaelim, You turn around, it's gone. You got to watch out with them. They're very dangerous, very dangerous people. So anyway, right, that's how they are. That's one thing. I'll tell you another funny story, which is that they say about, there was a pilot, of Arafat, Yimach Shemo. Remember this guy, Arafat?
Yeah.
The biggest enemy of the Jews, right? Yimach Shemo v'zichro. So what happened was, he used to fly around, from one place to another, to instigate people against the Jews, to speak Lashon Hara about the Jews everywhere he would go, So he had a plane, he had a pilot. So they say the pilot was an American guy, The pilot. So the American guy, right, once Arafat died, and then he lost the job, So they interviewed him, and they asked him, they said, what was it like, to be Arafat's pilot? So he tells them, right, he says, I'll tell you, he says, when we used to go, everywhere we flew, he says, if we would stop, to stay at a hotel somewhere, they would steal the towels, from the hotel, they would steal, and they would bring it onto the plane, and show it to each other, oh, look, I stole this, you see, look at this, beautiful towels. They would brag about it, like they stole the towels from the hotel, That's how they are, Yado b'kol, yad kol bo. They take everything. So, that's why they have a rule, in Saudi Arabia, in many countries like this, if somebody steals, they cut off his hand. They cut it off. You know why? Because they know everybody's a thief, If you don't scare them, everybody's stealing. You know what I mean? You have to scare them so much, they don't steal. You cut it off. Finished. This is their punishment. Okay, you get the idea. There was another midrash that says, right, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, he says, don't commit adultery, that's what it's written, right? Lo tin'af. So Ishmael said, oh, I'm sorry, but I like to do that, I like to take other people's wives, He's into it, you know what I mean? He says, no, I cannot accept that. So either way, right, Ishmael could not accept, Not that, by the way, you want to hear something funny? Look how true the Torah is, I heard that they have something in their religion like this, in the Ishmaelim, Yimach Shemo. You know what that says over there? According to the teachings of that Chamor, that taught them, that Chamor that they talk about all the time. You know what he taught them, right? He taught them, they said, if you see somebody, who's a kofer, he's a rasha, you're allowed to take his wife and be with her. That's what he taught them, That's exactly, that's the whole point, They take other people's wives, if they see, the guy's like not religious, they take his wife and live with her. This is what they do. This is their religion. You get it? So, therefore, they rejected the Torah, and all the other nations as well, by the way, just two examples. Why these two examples? Because they're the heads of the Goyim, Esav and Ishmael, they're the heads. Right? Ele bareched, ve'ele basusim, right? What does it mean, this pasuk? Ele, Gematria 35. 35 nations, ve'ele basusim, right? 35. How much together? 70. 70 nations, right? The Goyim. There are 70 Goyim. Ele ve'ele, right? each one is one. That Aleph, right, is Esav and right, and Ishmael. So there's one more, 36. Right? How much is Gematria 30? Ele? 36, right? 36.
Ele is 36.
Right? Yes. So there's 35 nations and Esav. 35 nations and Ishmael. Altogether 72. That's the Gematria. Understand? So what does that mean over there in the Pasuk? It means that they're going to come against us, all these nations together, and Gog and Magog. Ele barechev, ele basusim. They're the heads, Ishmael and Esav, they're the heads of those nations. They're on the top. So Kadosh Baruch Hu offered, to them the Torah, they rejected, So that's why, you know what they say, right? Why is it called Har Sinai? Why do they call this mountain Sinai? Right? Right, Sinai. That's one drash, right? One drash. So what does that mean? It caused the Goyim to hate us, because we accepted the Torah and they did not. So that's when the hatred, the anti-Semitism, started between the Jews and the Goyim. That's how anti-Semitism started. When we accepted the Torah and they didn't accept the Torah. Where did that happen? On Har Sinai. Sinai.
It's not new.
Yeah, it's from Matan Torah. Right? Anti-Semitism. So that's the thing, I'll tell you one more thing and we'll stop. So we accepted the Torah, Baruch Hashem, that's good. So, it says the Gemara like this, right? That Rabbi Yosef, of the Gemara, right? There's a big Chacham there, Rabbi Yosef. It says, right, and he was the happiest on this holiday, on Shavuot, out of all the holidays. He was the most happy. What's the reason why? So they say, there was this logic like this, he used to say, if it wasn't for this holiday, Haiti Yosef Acher Bashuka, right? I would be just another Yosef in the marketplace, right? In the supermarket. What makes me special? Because of Shavuot, we accepted the Torah. That's why I'm special, I'm a rabbi. Otherwise I'd be another Yosef, like everybody else. It's all the same, right? How many Yosefs do you have on 47th Street, right? You probably have a lot over there. Right? Yosef, Yegudayev, right? This name. All the same, right? They're all Yosef. But Yosef, Rabbi Yosef, he's Chacham. So he was happy, This is what made me, this holiday made me into what I am. That's why he was so happy. I remember the same thing, Alav Shalom, Maran, when we used to go, to him for Shavuot, so we had the all-night learning, all night learning, like everywhere they do. So Maran, he would go up. He had like 2 floors, One floor was his house, and downstairs from the house was a Bet Knesset, a little shul, about the size of this shul. Different shape, but the same size almost. So he had a shul there, So he would go up, and learn. Shavuot night, he would go learn, all night we were learning. And then he would come down, like 2 or 3 times in the middle after he stopped, learning. And he would give a shurim, he would give a lecture to the people, to the Balabatim. 2 or 3 times like this, he would go up, down, like this, every time going up and down. And when you would see him, you would see, wow, the rabbi was so happy, like we said, Rav Yosef, right? Same thing, right? He was so happy on Chag Shavuot, he was smiling. His face was lighting with radiance, right? Why? Because this is what made him into what he was, Matan Torah, right? We accepted the Torah. That's what made him what he was. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen, Amen. רבי חנין שאומר, אז הקדוש ברוך הוא לא זכר לצה"ל, ולפיך הרבה להם תורה ומצוות, שנאמר בני חפץ, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה בידי.